ahead and get started here. Thank you all for being here again. Welcome back to Adult Ed. Today, in our continuing series on the modern face of immigration and migration, we have a panel on Borderlinks. What's Ren's last name? Ren Manning, thank you for being here today. I'm going to throw it over to you real quick. I forget your face is here, but the camera's in. So I'm going to throw it over to you in just a minute to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about Borderlinks. And then we have a fine panel of your own St. Lucas here who have been experienced with this ministry, and they're going to tell us something. I'm sure that's going to be meaningful and engaging. I can't wait. I don't know what it is. So I'm looking forward to learning right alongside with all of you. So without further ado, Ren, what in the world is Borderlinks and who in the world are you?
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you all. And especially Julie and Daryl, it's really good to see you, and thanks for making the connection. And just for all of your generosity and creative collaborations over the years. I'm really excited that this is an opportunity to continue that relationship. And it's my honor to be with you all today. So my name is Ren Manning. I use they, them, AE pronouns. I've been the director of education at Borderlinks for 3 years now. I'm from the Southwest, so the borderlands are deep in my roots. And before Borderlinks, I did migrant justice organizing through mostly advocacy for access to higher education for undocumented students and deportation defense work, as well as other organizing around like faith-based social justice work and electoral organizing. So all sorts of things, but it's always been migrant justice. This is the heart of my passion and what I love to do.
Hey, Ren, right there. But I just want to let you know that your internet connection seems to be a little touch and go. We've lost you a couple of times. It wasn't insane. So that last thing that you just said, we definitely missed. So could you repeat what you just said?
Sure. Yes. Sorry about that. And maybe if we continue to have issues, I can switch over and just hop on through my phone. So let me know if needed. Yeah. Yeah, before Borderlinks, I was doing other migrant justice organizing work around access to higher education for undocumented students. And so beyond Borderlinks, I've been doing this work for many years, and it's my passion and my heart and what I love to do. So yeah, let's see. I want to read our mission and vision statements because they are new, which is very exciting. We're celebrating 35 years this year, and we're in a refresh moment. So our vision at Borderlinks: we dream of a just world where there is freedom of movement for all peoples. Communities in the borderlands have what they need to thrive, and everyone's full collective humanity and dignity is honored. We believe in the power of strategic movements to create transformative change, justice, and collective liberation while dismantling interlocking systems of oppression. Whew. And our mission, Borderlinks is a community-based organization where people collectively learn, teach, reflect, share resources, and organize for justice in the borderlands. Through popular education rooted in place and lived experience, Borderlinks and community partners inspire and ignite action to transform unjust border and immigration laws and conditions. We belong to movements for social transformation and collective liberation. So I wanted to share those verbatim because we just worked really hard on them. And I think it marks an important shift in the work we're doing. Today, we'll be really focusing on our educational experiences, our delegations that we lead. But we're also really expanding to be a space that holds a lot of opportunities for shared learning and teaching, all for migrant justice, and skill building in a way that gives us tools to take meaningful action. So at Borderlinks, we use a model of popular education, which posits that education is not neutral. It's either towards furthering oppression or towards liberation. So we're very clear in the fact that what we do is education for the purpose of liberation. And it also is a model that turns on the head, who we see as experts. So often we would think of the person with the most degrees that's most focused on something. But at Borderlinks, we're really framing lived experience as the core place of expertise. And so our model is really framed around like being led by migrants and having community partners that are migrant-led organizations. And then it's through experience and practice. And so a lot of our workshops are interactive and engaging in that way. We're celebrating 35 years, like I mentioned. And I know you all heard from John Fife about the roots of sanctuary movement, and that's really where Borderlinks was birthed out of. And we continue to do similar work and also have evolved. Some of the main things we do in our work is we confront anti-immigrant rhetoric, we develop grounded hope, and we build power, we guide strategic direction, and we reduce interpersonal harm. So it's about understanding the context of what's happening with immigration and then giving people the tools to really be active in their own communities after they participate. We facilitate in-person programming and also virtual. During COVID, we started doing virtual delegations and they stayed. It's a strategy that we now recognize makes it really accessible for people who wouldn't otherwise be able to travel to the borderlands, to be able to participate and still meet the activists and organizers who are on the ground here doing amazing work, and still engage, in workshops from topics around, the history of immigration law to understanding white supremacy and racism, frameworks of solidarity. So we cover a wide range of topics, and we work with over 30 different community partner organizations. And those are activities that are integrated both into our in-person programming and also our virtual programming. So part of that popular education model is we see, we think, and we act. So it's a combination of theory, reflection, and practice. So every delegation starts with context, and we do day trips to different border towns in southern Arizona, northern Mexico, and we meet with partners, and then there's reflection at the end of every day. And at the end, there's an action plan. So again, education for the purpose of liberation. We're hoping to provide people with really concrete ways that it integrates into their life after participating in our programming. Let's see. So, yeah.
You were hoping to provide what? You kind of cut out there. What were you hoping to provide? At the very end.
Provide concrete ways for people to integrate their learning and continue on their action after participating with us. Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And yeah, so I would say that, one thing I want to share is agency and our, I mentioned grounded hope earlier. And part of that is the experience of really having, like, feeling our agency. Angela Davis has a quote, "You have to act as if it were possible to radically transform the world, and you have to do it all the time." And we're really living in unprecedented times right now with, climate change and increased global displacement, increased global militarization. And in the face of that, we need to continue to have grounded hope. So one of the things we're doing at Borderlinks is really preparing people to feel that spark of what is possible for each of us to do. I was with a delegation a few months ago, and we were driving along the border wall by Sasabe, which is a little border city, and a group of migrants crossed right in front of the van while we were driving along, and Border Patrol was right behind us, and we slowed down and the group stopped. It was a group of like 3 adults and probably 7 children, some very tiny, like 1 year being carried to 10 years old. They stopped at the side of the road, and Border Patrol was right behind us already, so they just stopped and started gathering the group into their van. It's likely the group was seeking asylum and were just waiting to present themselves in that moment, but it was still a really confronting moment for our delegates to witness, and feel like, oh, I want to do something. Like, can we get out of the van? Can we intervene in this? Can we support in some way? Which we were not, able to do in that moment. But it was a moment of having this like very embodied experience of the wall, understanding like the people's lives that are impacted, and feeling the spark of like, I don't know what I can do in this moment. But I'm gonna embody this experience and the care and the urgency I feel right now to take action later on. So I think that's really the core of what we do at Borderlinks, is that spark. Because it's so hard to get real information far away or from a distance, and it's so different to be in person. Um,
Can I ask you a question about that, Ren?
sure.
Yeah, so, of course, as a experiential leader myself, I fully value the experiential aspect of learning to go and witness these things. I know I have a question from our crowd here, that is, for those folks who are perhaps too old to travel, these are their words, not mine, but perhaps, mobilities or issues, are there, you were talking about virtual workshops, are there experiences for, say, a crowd of folks who are very passionate about the subject in Minnesota who maybe wouldn't be able to travel to the border?
Yes, absolutely. So both workshops that are like 2 hour long, and also delegations that are, anywhere up to what we would want to shape for it. So it could be, 4 half days. It could be 6 2 hour time periods. Like, we have a lot of flexibility. We don't want to do more than 6 hours of Zoom at a time, maximum in a day, which I'm sure you all could agree with. But beyond that, we're really able to be flexible. And we also, I was excited. I looked up where you all are located because one of our full-time staff right now just moved to Minneapolis. And so I would love to connect you all too. And, there's a possibility he might be able to come do something in person there for folks who couldn't travel, which would at least be, part of that sort of interactive experience. So yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the question.
Or, I have your email address, I'm gonna be in touch with you. I'm gonna be setting up one of these workshops, folks, don't worry about it. I'm definitely gonna be in touch with you, Ren, but for our YouTube crowd, maybe watching this another time, do you wanna share how folks might be able to contact you to, follow up for their own organization?
Yeah, absolutely. So I can put my email and phone number in the chat here for folks on Zoom, and for you all in person. I know now there are multiple people there who have my contact information, so you can share it. But also on our website, that's a really good place to.
I assume they're
It's
saying what.
borderlinks.org. You can sign up for our newsletter. You can sign up for events. We have a series coming up, the first one on October 11th, 3 p.m. Pacific, so 5 p.m. for you all. And we're going to have 3 throughout the fall of different artists and authors and activists. So I highly encourage you to go to our website and check out those events. And also, that's where you can go to schedule programming as well. So you can reach out to us through our website to schedule workshops and delegations. And of course, if you're not able to participate in any of those ways and still want to support the work, we also welcome donations. And there's a lot of ways to, contribute and be part of the work. So yeah, lots of ways to stay engaged. And, beyond our educational programming, we also use our facilities for hosting people in transit who sometimes need the space, or just lodging guests. If any of you ever come to Tucson and want to volunteer with local organizations and want to stay at Borderlinks facilities, we have that space available as well. So lots of ways to be, lots of ways to be connected. And I'm excited that we'll hear next from other people who have participated in Borderlinks delegations, because that's the core of what we do, is that lived experience.
Thank you, Red. That's borderlinks.org to find more information on their programs and how to get your organization involved. And for anyone who might sometime, for some reason, go to Arizona and visit Tucson, right? I don't know, maybe one or two people here do that occasionally. Reach out to Borderlinks and have an experience with them. What do you think, Red? Is there a way that someone who's like 85, 90 would be able to have an experience with you if they were around?
Yeah, absolutely. Flexibility is our middle name. So we like to work with groups and see what your needs are and where you're at and come up with something for there. So absolutely.
There, you are not too old to participate in the Borderlinks experience. I just want to name that, because that is a concern that I have heard expressed. So reach out to Borderlinks if you want. Now, thank you, Ren. Is there? It sounds like we should reach out and turn things over to our panel here for a moment to hear some experiences. And Ren, are you sticking around for this time, or do you have to run?
Yeah, I'll stick around.
Okay, wonderful. Great. Well, then let's just take a minute and here I'm going to invite our panelists to introduce themselves and maybe give a word of context as to why you're sitting up here on the panel, and then we'll get into a deeper dive. Does that sound good?
Sure. Daryl Schmidt went to.
I'm just going to tell her that
Great.
Great.
Daryl Schmidt went on the wonderful 2007 State of the Borderlinks delegation. And I'm going to talk, when it's my turn, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Presbyterian program, how that was connected.
Oh, you'll find out.
I know what it is. Okay, I'm actually the president of the Business Peace Project, so I work in the housing space, and I went on 2005 Presbyterian trip, and it really has informed how I do housing. Anyway, I'm Amy Corrins, and I went on the 2007 Borderlinks. You know, this started my experience. Everyone asked what surprised us, and was the people that we met that were crossing the border. In Altair, Mexico, there was a community center where these people were staging to go across the border the next day. And the community center tried to discourage them, but there was no way these people would be discouraged. One was a young man who been deported from California, come as a child, small child. He'd been working as a person in a restaurant, cooking restaurant for 16 years, had a family. His restaurant was raided. He got moved to Tijuana in 7 months, and he missed his family. He had tears in his eyes most of the time he was talking to us. And Coyote robbed him. He gave an extra $1,000. He was just all the way on, so he had nothing left. But he was trying to get to Tijuana to get a job again, so he did some more money. Hernando was somebody from Honduras that had been selected by his poor community to have the honor of going to El Norte and trying to get to America, get somebody to send it back to this community that was so poor. Carlos, this Ken was talking about how he's afraid to go to this community center that's been surrounded by these migrants. He's worried that he wouldn't be able to But we walked up and Carla said, hey, how you doing? And, it's perfect American English, and he had been a roofer in, South Carolina. And he said he could make $13 a day in the United States, $3 an hour in the United States, sorry, $5 a day in Mexico, and the cost of living is about the same, except for housing is cheaper. And there were two brothers from Salvador that started on a train, and 400 people on the top of the train, and most fell off and were pushed, and he said they would have made it except for somebody offered them a glass of water on top. Dennis had lived for 16 years in South Carolina, and he was in the 8th car of a pilot on the freeway. He didn't have documentation, so he then broke his leg. That's when the hospital was you're gone. And so he had a broken leg and was staying in this community center, and he said, "You can't go to that. I don't need." Yeah. And he said, "I never did." So off he went the next day. And he told the women, the coyotes told the women, that they should start taking birth control pills about 3 months before they go, because chances that they'll be raped are pretty high. And I was reading my notes this morning.
So last week, we heard from John Fife about the situation that forcing churches basically to offer sanctuary. Almost all of the people seeking asylum from Salvador, Honduras, were denied because the U.S. was affiliated with their governments. And of course, I wanted to figure out why that was. If you guys remember O. Henry, he coined the term banana republic after spending several years in Honduras. His book, Cabbages and Canes, he talks about a fictional republic based on Honduras that was politically unstable, which a small circle of political elites aligned themselves with foreign commercial interests for companies to exploit the country's natural resources, benefiting themselves at the expense of the impoverished province. Political historians adopted that term to describe Honduras, Guatemala, and to a lesser extent. So it was the bananas. 200 years ago, nobody up here ate a banana. But then some of the sea captains from Orleans, England, they were down in the Caribbean looking for coconuts or anything else they could bring up here and sell. And they started experimenting with these bananas, which didn't travel. They came up with a better variety that could travel well. And they started shipping them. By the end of the 1800s, bananas were a huge business, and US companies wanted their own plantations. So they would bribe local officials or basically foreign crews in order to get this thing. By the 1930s, United Fruit owned over 40% of the arable land in Guatemala. So, of course, these are monocrop plantations. They're susceptible to disease, and pretty quickly, early 1910, that happened. So then United Fruit abandoned the plantations, abandoned the workers, and went to new ones. So you can imagine the devastating effect this had on the land, as well as, then World War II. And after World War II, there was kind of a global turn to democracy. And in those regions, they elected democratic leaders who wanted to give the land back to people. And of course, United Fruit didn't want that to happen. So they aligned with their colonial allies up here, and partly due to anti-communism, they were able to install coups, get autocratic leaders who would protect United Fruit. And that's basically, along with the guns, of course, why our government was eventually aligned with those autocratic governments. It was to protect United Fruit, Chiquita. In foreign policy, that is typically the case all over the world, especially in our region. And it's especially ironic now that we sort of view the region as failed states. They were failed all right, pretty much by us. I wanted to get a short list of of involvement in the region. And I have 7 pages of US interventions. I mean, the Marines were in Honduras for years and years, basically occupied. So we have to face the fact that our foreign policy is driving this migration and has been for very long. I wanted to end with a quote from a Somali British poet, Farsan Sherry. She reminds us that, you know, we came from this kind of situation. Don't choose. No one puts their child in a boat, she says, unless the water is safe for them.
Thanks, Maggie, for bringing back those memories. I too was reading the notes you took so well the past few days and trying to do those stories. In 2007, 15 of us, St. Lutheran's, went on a delegation to Borderlinks. And that was a very powerful experience for me, and it certainly was for our daughter Catherine as well, who was a senior in high school at the time. And 2 other young people, and Suzanne. A few years later, after Catherine graduated from college, the late, great Reverend Dick Hayden encouraged Catherine to apply for the Presbyterian Young Adult Volunteer Program. And she did. And her assignment was to work for a year at Borderlinks, leading these delegations that we've been on. And that was another very impactful experience for her. In part because Borderlinks was great then and is still really great and important now, but also because she was living with a number of other Yavs for a year in Tucson, and also because she was able to attend and interact with the Southsiders. So another very important experience for her. And those experiences led to her doing what she's doing now. The last 6 years, she's worked for Isaiah and its sister organization, Faith in Minnesota. And that's where she's working with students, so she couldn't be with us. But I would say Faith in Minnesota, of course, works on a number of these justice issues, including immigration justice. And one of the things that they've been working on, and many of you have been working on, are things like driver's licenses for all, which takes it very much on, which is really critical. Undocumented neighbors. So perhaps Evelyn can say more about the YAV program. I understand it's aligned well. We should encourage our young people to consider that. But I just wanted to say that on behalf of Julie and Catherine, the experiences that we've received from the great organizations of St. Luke and Borderlinks and others have been really powerful, impactful, life-changing experiences. So thank you all. Hi, Rick out there, and there are so many others who went on this trip.
If you went on that trip, raise your hand. That's awesome. It's like half a amazing. So thank you all for those experiences. I do have some questions. So I obviously wasn't here in 2007. I wouldn't have this experience with y'all. Real quickly, yeah, I'm guessing that's young adult volunteer. Is that right? Young adult volunteer, that's what that stands for. I figured that out myself there. It's also worth noting that as we learned and heard from last week, there was a period of time when the United States essentially had open borders and people were encouraged to just come here and work, as the American political establishment recognized that we needed more labor for all sorts of industrious industries. And so we welcomed people to come across the border. And then when they were here, we decided, no, we're going to change our policies now. And so they were here, and then we changed our policies. And so these people, many of whom are undocumented, came here at the bequest of and the whim of the United States government, and then are stuck here without any sort of proper paperwork because they didn't need it when they got here. And then we decided, no, show us your papers. So that's just one piece that I think is important to recognize, especially as we talk about, and Ren, I do want to hear how we talk about confronting anti-immigrant rhetoric. If you can speak a little bit about that. Because there is so much anti-immigrant rhetoric out there today. Even in Minnesota, we still hear it. And it's important to understand that these people didn't just break the law and sneak over here. Many of them came here perfectly fine, and then we were the ones who decided that we needed to see their papers that we never gave them initially. So I'm wondering, I want to turn it over to Ren for one question to ask about some like, how do we confront anti-immigrant rhetoric? And then I'd love to open it up for a formal Q&A for any other questions that you all might have for our panel, or if there's anything else that you all want to bring forward. Ren, are you still with us?
Sure am. Yeah, so that's a great question. I think the first thing is just centering humanity always, like we're already practicing here, is, you know, uplifting stories that we know, and always just, yes, going back to centering humanity. I think another thing is also, I talked about agency, but agency of migrants as well. When we tell migrant stories, there's so much emphasis on migrants being the victim of a system that they're just kind of pushed around through. And so we do a lot of work of really understanding like migrant choices throughout their life to, you know, as well, like understanding the way systems are functioning and being able to look at the history. And then also within the experience, that's part of centering humanity, is migrants' agency within it. And it's so small and it's so big. It's like in the, even, you know, who's included in the we? Who's we and who's them, who's us and them, you know, so just like awareness even in little ways, and then the sort of larger onslaught I think we're about to face a lot through this election cycle. And so I'm sure all of you in your, you know, advocacy work will be seeing that in different ways. And pointing out where criminalizing language is coming from, I think is a huge one, because like you said, you know, migrating isn't illegal. And actually, even just crossing the border used to be a civil charge, like same as jaywalking, you know, like in that realm. And so it's actually the way that these basic sort of meeting human needs gets criminalized, gets put on people. So being able to like say people aren't criminals. We never use the word illegal when we talk about people. You know, people first, so like people who are undocumented, rather than like, you know, there's just so many subtle things in our language. So starting to notice those and honestly practicing it, like we're just, there's such an onslaught. So, you know, I would just really encourage folks to like engage with the media headlines and take time, choose one and think, okay, how would I rewrite this if I were trying to use humanizing language that centers migrant experience rather than whatever this headline is I'm reading. So just practicing it in those ways too. Yeah, there's a lot there, but hopefully that's helpful.
Super helpful, thank you. And it's a great teaser for the kind of education you can get when you sign up for a Borderlinks workshop experience. So thank you for sharing that with us, Ren. Do we have other questions in the crowd? Yeah, Evelyn. Oh, that's right. We had a couple of other people who wanted to say some things too.
It's gonna be going to tell her story of meeting in Philippines. The brothers had promised projects. To talk about what we've been doing, what we've been doing here, and to help us and what we can continue to do as actions.
So yes, we'll look forward to hearing your experiences, Connie, on a future week. And I would like to invite Peter Frederick up to share a couple of words with us How about, quick to jump out of that hot seat. Just to share, if you don't know, Peter Frederick's been working with the Immigrant Law Center here in Minneapolis for quite some time. And has a wealth of experience and information that he is offering to share with us briefly here today. Do you want to have a seat or do you want to speak? It's up to you.
No, I'll sit.
Okay. Here you go, real close to your face.
And I heard brief, I heard 5 minutes, I heard a couple of minutes, and I wrote 1 page, so I will not go past 1 page. And when I'm just listening to the word move, and then before listening to you all here, I think what I've written out is a summary of what I heard from the rest of you in compelling ways. And so you'll see that. The question that I have is green or red for America, for us, green or red. And you'll see that on the handout, the cartoons about immigration, front and back, that I just passed out 2 copies as it goes around, green or red. So the title, that's my title, and this is an invitation to observe federal immigration court in Fort Snelling, as I did for 4 years, and as Sandy and Dick Grundy and 3 or 4 others have also done in the last 5 years. We've been active, and as you all know and have just heard, a major, if not the major theme in American history is immigration. And as symbolized by the Statue of Liberty, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, or not. The next line, by the way, is your wretched refuse from your teeming shores. That's the next line in the last verse. It's quite a contrast from the huddled masses yearning to breathe free. But then alternating periods of open borders get replaced in long periods in American history of closed borders, restrictive laws, quotas, essentially the immigrants of the previous generation saying, stop, no more, too many of you, go back. That's the second unfortunate theme in American history. And demeaning ethnic slurs, long studies, 20 volumes on how unfit for America these people are. 1912, by the way, it's a publication by Congress. Intimidation, walls, razor wire barriers, and as John Fife said last week, 2 more, US government sanctioned strategies of separating children from their parents, and death, intentional deaths while crossing the waterless Sonora Desert. There it is, show the picture. Taking the water, shooting people, shooting the water, the water that you put out for the migrants so that the water will be not there for the next group to come along. Those are intentional strategies by the American government. A third strategy that we see in court is ICE entrapping and then detaining migrant refugees, then incarcerating them in Sherburne County and other local prisons, privatized prisons, and where they face in prison long months. The average now is 4 years before their case gets heard in a federal immigration court. The detention is so long that it leads many of the migrants to almost beg for deportation back to the country that they left, maybe at age 3, to come to America. So these migrants who make it across the river and past the walls and through the Borderlinks of seminars and workshops in pursuit of their dreams of a better life in America. They end up in our federal immigration court. We see Hernando and Carlos in court in shackles around the ankles and the wrists. And we see them leaving the court, shuffling across from their seat after the judge has denied their asylum. Shuffling in those shackles across in her orange jumpsuit, across the courtroom and out the door that clangs, a metal double doors that clang and make noise, waving to their family maybe they'll never see again. That's what we see in immigration courts and what we witness. Third paragraph 4, immigration law, as I assume most of you know, is different from civil and criminal law. Detainees are instantly criminalized when they cross the border illegally or lawfully. Or as one judge used to put it, you are an illegal alien in our country. And we gave him feedback on that, and he has now changed his language. And all the other judges, through workshops that this head judge, that I called him out on that language of illegal aliens in our country. And we observers give them that feedback. And they now do, this judge is now running workshops for the other judges to watch their language. So in John 5 last week, last paragraph, last point. And by the way, I have a sign back there, green or red, and I have a handout, green or red. If you want, if you're interested or don't you care, not interested, another anti-immigrant way of responding to the rhetoric is on the thing that's coming around, and a whole bunch of cartoons, political cartoons, call the hypocrisy of America to justice, or so we hope. So when John 5 told the story of the Salvadorian kid hiding in the closet in that Lutheran church last week, led away by ICE agents to prison and certain deportation, I thought of the scores and more of the Central American and African, Iberia, especially Somali, mostly men that we see in court shuffling across to the exit. And when John 5 spoke last week about sanctuary churches as sacred places, I thought about our courtroom number 5 in Fort Snelling, where we witness sacred moments. And we offer our support as best we can. What can I do? Who was it who said, I think Carol, what can I do? Or one of you said, what can I do in this moment? One of you. Huh? But it doesn't matter. I'm about done. What can I do? And I thought about the stories that we hear in court from the migrant refugees. Stories in conflict with, direct conflict, their story about how they've gotten here and what their hopes and prayers are to stay here, against a judge, immigration judges, who are following a president's DHS instructions, or that's not even all that better under the current president, but the other one started it in the worst of possible ways. Talk about better. How do we get old men start a sentence to come out of it? And she's telling me to stop, right? So, if you have questions, ask any of us who witness, and the word is witness these sacred experiences in immigration court. what you said first, we see at the border, we see later in sports now.
So, thank you, Peter, you can applause for that. No, Peter, you used the word witness, and one thing that I've learned on the recent cultural exchange that we did in Service Trip to Alaska was the importance of witnessing. And so often in Western society, we think we need to take action, we need to do something, we need to fix a problem. And legitimately, transformation occurs when we sit and bear witness to the major impactful moments of other people's lives. And if you, like, we felt the fire and the passion coming out here, and I have to imagine that a lot of that is from, how many years you've been witnessing immigration court?
Well, I taught these stories that give me a lot of good history. Kathy, a lot of really good history, 20 years, 1915 to 1934, the United States government had invaded and was occupying Honduras of some or other sexual what was the question?
Yeah. How long have you been witnessing immigration court?
As a teacher, for 45, 50 years.
45
teaching years.
Yes, but witnessing the courts.
5 years.
5 years.
4.5.
4.5, 5 years. We got there. 4.5, 5 years you've been witnessing the court. And you know, next Sunday on October 8th at 2 p.m., we have the opportunity to witness healing and reconciliation of the PCUSA going to Alaska and trying to make right a series of racist incidents that they occurred in Northern Alaska. That is a way to witness next week here in our space. But if we are feeling inspired and, you know, and even if an old guy like you could go and witness these courts.
It's hard, the benches are hard on old people's backs, and they keep the courtrooms cold.
I bet that they would be hard on my back too, Peter. So bring a pillow, and how does someone?
That doesn't work, after 3 hours, it doesn't work, right?
Okay, you're not, I'm trying to invite people to do this work, Peter, and I recognize that it's hard. It's not a walk in the park, right? Yes. It's not a walk in the park to do this, and yet it is still impactful and important. If Peter, you had not been there to bear witness and offer feedback to these judges, the impact of bearing witness and offering feedback has transformed a head judge and offered workshops that transform judges. So bearing witness is important, and you can also make impacts.
And as you all illustrated in the panel, and all know, we are transformed by their stories.
Amen. And I got one more guest that I want to invite up. And we got about 10 more minutes here. So Lyle, you coming up? Or Gina, you coming up? Come on up. What you got to say? Yeah, come on up. Join me in the hot seats. Come on up here.
We want to talk a minute.
Ooh, yeah, here's a microphone. Talk right into it.
We want to talk a little bit about what's happening on the border. We have been going to Tucson, Arizona for over 20 years and have volunteered with a lot of these organizations. And Humane Borders. Humane Borders is an organization that puts out barrels of water in the desert on kind of known paths of migration with a big blue flag that they fly high in the air so people can't see those. And they get vandalized with people who are anti-immigration by the Border Patrol. They have documented Border Patrol shooting these barrels. And so that's one thing. I volunteered there for over 2 years in August. And it's amazing. There's Samaritans who go out. Their job is to find people in the desert that need help. that are coming over, they had carried, food, shoes, clothing, water. But there's first aid, well, they do some first aid, they also call border control if the migrants want that. And, there are a lot of shelters that Samaritans and a lot of people support that are on both sides of the border for people. The government lets across, and they may drop 100 of these at a shelter in one day or 2 months. And they feed them and clothe them, and shower, whatever. So there's a lot going on, and if you're even there for a month, you can find something to do. They'll take you as a food preparer or whatever, sorry. Whatever, or whatever I did.
Too much to say, but picking up on what we talked about. I also heard of what's going on with the border. One of the other efforts that Humane Borders does is they spend a lot of time mapping and then publishing where deaths occur on the border. And yeah, well, okay, not that too far away still. So I just printed a couple things off from this morning, but here's a map with red dots indicating deaths. Yes, Arizona only for the last 22 years that they're documented like 4,000 deaths. And, that's the story. It's just works in with what Laura was talking about witnessing. This is the way to witness and to disseminate information about what is actually happening. So that's interesting. Another addition to that.
In Mexico, in the border towns, they have these posted, and they really just try to discourage people from coming across because of the extreme danger of them dying. And they want people to know that it's not that we don't want you to come, but it's still something.
Well, how long does it take them to get from Mexico to the United States?
There is a lot, but the story they usually get from their coyote is it's about a 4-hour walk or something like that. So
It's 40 miles. No, 65.
per days. This is an example of all the posters that they're creating and passing out in Mexico to dissuade you. As somebody else mentioned this morning, people whose lives are in extreme danger are not easily pursued.
Thank you both for that perspective and feedback. So all of the handouts and information that you heard here today are going to be on the back table. If you haven't seen some photos, or if you haven't seen, you want to see something closer, check out the back table. There's also additional information back there. Brennan, you still with us?
Yes.
And thank you so much for being here and for doing the work. You had mentioned grounded hope. And as we get prepared to close our session here today, do you have a word or two that can offer something to give us some grounded hope? Because we've heard so much about the hardships and the institutional oppression that our country has done. Where do you find this sense of grounded hope?
Yeah, I think we're faced with the lie that of individuality, when really we're all part of a whole. And I think we find the most hope, I find the most hope, with other people. And so just remembering I don't have to do this by myself. There's actually a lot to learn from of movements throughout history that have been in this, and we're continuing that work on. There's organizations, when people say they want to get involved, the first thing I always say is join an organization. There's somebody out there already doing amazing work, so join them. You all are engaged in incredible work already as well. And so then the next layer too is how do we just get more and more strategic and effective at seeing the changes that we want to see happen. And I think that comes from listening to each other and learning from each other and remembering that relationships are that foundational piece. And of course, things that are not possible alone are possible when we do them together. So that's where I look for that hope.
Amen. Thank you, Ren. Let's give Ren.
Thank
And
you.
thank you all for being here as well.